Okay, so it's McTavish, and I have a little tutorial on fasten mates. So, in fastening training, just create your own copy of it. You'll see there's a couple of different ones. I'm going to have an assembly, and this is going to be finished assembly. So, what you need to do is create your own assembly using the plus sign and create assembly. So, we're creating a box, and we have the bottom and the front. We have our sides, and then we can double the bottom as a top. And the goal is to get people trained in this. So the first thing is insert, and if you go into the part studios, just insert the bottom by itself. Um, and I accidentally clicked a bunch of different things, so just got to be careful there. So there's the bottom, green check mark, and you'll notice that that is not constrained. So what I want to do is fix it. So you want to make sure that when you're inserting it, you click it and you don't drag your mouse around. You make sure that you're just staying in here so that it stays where you want it. So that is now fully constrained. And we can see that. So you can maneuver around. And that's the key thing, practice maneuvering around. So zoom out with your scroll wheel, right click to rotate your camera view so you can see it from different angles, and hold down the scroll wheel and pan. You got to be very careful to do those things because you're going to be relying on them quite a bit. And you can use the view cube in the corner to get things back to where you want them. So I've got that in, it's fastened. So that little symbol indicates that it's fixed. That's what I want. So now I'm going to insert. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the back. And you can choose how to do it. If you let it go where it goes, that's great. There it is. Now, with the back, um, we're going to just drag this up so you can see where it goes. So I'll just undo. You can see it goes along the back there and it's on top of it. So what I'm going to do is again, drag it up. And if you find it easier to simply click on something and then use the triad, that way you can specify a set distance that you put it. And sometimes the triad is a little bit easier to do that kind of thing. So the first thing is that we're going to fasten it. And most of the time we use the fasten mate connector. So with the fasten mate connector, we need to pick 2 points. So looking at this, that point right there is where it connected to. And as you can see, when I'm holding my mouse there, and I'm just going to move my mouse, you can see the blue is going up, the red is going along that back edge, and the green is going along that edge. So that mate connector, the red, green, and blue are really important because they correspond to the X, Y, Z, and where they meet is the origin of that particular mate connector. So that orientation is really crucial. When I move my mouse, watch what happens. So now I'm got it. And now my blue is connected and it's facing that direction along this axis. So that origin, that orientation is really important. And the key thing is that you need to take your time. And if I hold my mouse this way, you can see now the blue's facing that way. So my Z axis will the direction that my Z axis is facing is going to be really crucial to how my points, how these mate together. So I'm going to click this one. And as I said, take your time. Hold your mouse. It's really hard to do this with the touch screen or with the touchpad. Much better with a good quality mouse. And then if I'm going to click on here, you can see below you can I can actually see my triad. It's pointing up. My blue is pointing up. My blue is pointing down. If I click that, that is going to mate those 2 points and they're beautifully mated together. And I should be able to click the green check mark. Now, why am I getting an error? Mate connectors are on same instance. So I'm just going to undo that. The same instance So there's the bottom, and there's, and you can see practicing scrolling to zoom in, everything is good. So the first thing is that I want to make sure that that's black. Um, I'm just going to, if I, that instance that I had before, I'm just going to do that. You can see it's red. So when you have a red one, have a look at it. Mate connectors are on the same instance means that I'm trying to mate something to itself. That can't be possible. So that's going to be an issue. The other thing is that sometimes you're going to be mating something and it becomes over constrained, and that um, so that can be an issue as well. So I'm just going to do another mate, and I'm purposely doing this because I want you to see the difference. So now you can see the orange is selecting the line. So I'm mating relative to the line and not to the face. And so what I'm going to get here, if I'm mating to this face, so it's the same point, but the difference is that the orientation of my mate connectors is different. And you can see that's changing how it's mated, and it's actually going inside, which is not what I want. Now, there are times where you get something like that, and you can use some of these tools to flip the object or rotate the object. And sometimes it works really well. Because of the orientation of this piece, it's not going to work. So sometimes it's easier just to undo and go back in, and again, practice that. Now, couple things. If I'm having trouble with the mouse, um, what I can do is I can go into name views, and I can select that, and I can just get things lined up. And now I have two main views. So watch what happens now. So I decide I want to do the mate. I'm just going to go over here to my named views, and I'm going to select mate one. There we go. All set up for me. So mate connectors. There's my fast mate. Now I know I've got an error, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch to name views, go back to mate two, and now I can open up that mate again and easily get it. So if you're having trouble, sometimes that's a strategy that you can use. Okay, so now that we have this mated, we're now going to add the sides. So actually, what we're going to do, we're going to add the front. So we've got the back, let's add the front. And we'll just use a copy of the back. So this time I am going to move it. So I'm going to put it over there. So I want the same strategy, but it's going to be up at the front. So it's sometimes helpful to kind of position it. Where am I going to go here? So maybe I'll go right there. And I want to be able to position it that I know I can zoom in and I can rotate and zoom in to be able to get those. Now, the other thing is the order that you fasten things will determine which object moves to which object. So if I'm clicking that one right there and that one, I don't have an issue at all because the order, the bottom here was fixed. So it wasn't a problem at all. But you can see if it's going the wrong, if the one item is moving and I want it to be stationary, I can flip the order so that way it's as if I had clicked them in the other order. Okay, so now I have them. Now I'm going to fit the sides. Now, I purposely drew the sides at an angle, and that is where the problem is going to be. So the sides, now if you look at the measurements for this, that's 4.5 inches. That is 4.5 inches. So it doesn't matter which side you use, and that was purposeful so that it doesn't mess you up too much. So there's a couple things that I can do. With the mate connector, My problem is if I'm using the base to connect it, that point is over there, which is the thickness of the material away. So I want to use this back instead because then I can line things up. So what I can do is I can click that, and I find it easier to rotate so that that is the corresponding angle. And if I've done that properly, um, it should pop up like that. And I don't know how I keep hitting it on the same instance. So let me just do that. So that can be a really, it doesn't matter that the object is angled because it's going to mate relative to the mate connector. So it actually works really smoothly. Now, sometimes it's just off enough that that's not feasible. So here's the other strategy that I use. So let's say I've got this object, and if I click those two lines, I get the angle between them. So it's 120 degrees between those objects. So what I can do then is that I can click on the object and click the triad, and there's the angle. So I said 120. Now 120, all relative, right? Um, so it's off by 120. Well, 180 minus 120 gives me the actual angle. And by doing it that way, it's now angled exactly the way I want to do it. And again, it's all about picking the right point. So maybe I'm going to pick this point right there, and I'm going to pick that point right there. And again, I have that issue. So, whoops. So I can go in and it shows me that I got that point. Somehow I've got a bad mouse that I do need to change, which is causing my problems. And it's just like it's double clicking. It's really bizarre. So that what's happening is it's I somehow double click and select the same point, which is not what I want. There we go. Now I've got it. And voila, I have my box. There we go. Starting with angles is really important. It takes practice. The other thing is that when you get to more complex shapes, um, that gets trickier and trickier. But I've got some techniques for that that we'll cover at a later day.